G'day everybody and welcome back to another episode of Craft by Tim. Today we're going to be turning this styrofoam Halloween decoration into an awesome paperweight. This is going to be really cool. I hope you guys enjoy. So how does this work? Well, this is a process called lost foam casting. Styrofoam is very interesting because styrofoam actually evaporates at a reasonably low temperature. And because of that, what we can do is we can take this, set it into a bucket of sand, and then as we pour in the styrofoam, it's going to melt through and evaporate off all of the gas, and it's going to leave us with a sand cast. Now this is a one-shot sort of thing, and I've been wanting to do this for a really long time. Unfortunately, this year I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna actually do that. And then of course I can't find these skulls. Thankfully enough, we already had a few of them lying around the shed. It does mean that I have to take the decorations off the walls to use one of these guys, rather than buying a bunch in store and then just melting and making a bunch of them. Now, one thing to note about this process is it can be kind of dangerous, so do make sure that you're wearing a respirator of at least some sort when you go to do this. Before we can get to the metal melting fun, we have to do a little bit of prep work to this, and we also have to figure out how much material we're going to need to fill up this skull. Got my calipers. First things first, we're going to do a little bit of maths. So I measure from like the two furthest points on here, about 10.5 centimeters. So this is roughly a sphere, so I'm going to use a volume sphere calculator. And I'm just going to go 5, let's just go 5.5. Always best to have extra material, and that's going to give us 696.91. We'll round that up to 697. Multiply that 697 by the lucky number of 1.25, and this is going to give us plus 25%, 871.25. So we'll say 872, and we're also going to add our sprue, which we are yet to attach. 8 times 2 times so 896 cubic centimeters, and it's very important that you remember what you're using. I'm using cubic centimeters, and then you're going to multiply this by the volume weight. So I'm using aluminium, and aluminium has a volume weight of 2.7 grams per cubic centimeter, which is 896. Basically 2.5 kilograms, which is definitely way more than what I should need for this. So the reason why I decided to add on so much extra material is because I know that melting down aluminium will often result in a lot of slag. What's slag? This is slag. This is an amalgamation of all of the paint and everything that comes out of aluminium cans that doesn't melt down cleanly. There is a bit of usable aluminium in this, but the amount of usable aluminium is negligible in comparison to how much effort it is to actually get that aluminium back out. So now we have to attach our sprue to our skull. Basically what a sprue is it's basically just a funnel to allow the molten metal to reach whatever it is that you're casting. I'm going to use some hot glue. I don't think hot glue is like the best choice for this, but it works. So we are going to use a little bit of hot glue. I don't want to use too much because the hot glue won't evaporate as easily. And we're just going to attach this to what's basically going to be the highest point on our skull. Now he's got a little tail on the back, and we're going to let this dry and cool. So this is my crucible that I'm using for this. This is actually a cut down fire extinguisher with a few little extra bits welded onto it to make it easier to hold and pour. But as you can see on the inside, my last pour didn't go so well, and there's quite a bit of metal that's been left in that. It's meant to be brass, but I've actually ended up evaporating off most of the zinc, which is really bad, and you shouldn't do that. But not everything goes exactly as you plan. So I'm hoping that when I use this, I'll actually end up with more of a bronze rather than a an actual aluminium. Because of that, I am just going to sort of just throw in the aluminium, and I'm going to see what sort of result I end up with. I don't really know. It's probably going to end up just being a muck metal, but we're going to see what we get. Okay, so at this point in time, we're ready to start making up our mold for casting. You want to make sure that your sand is nice and dry. So I've been drying this above the forge. If you don't have nice dry sand, this is the sort of result that you can expect. Lots of speckles and stuff. This was just carved out of styrofoam pretty quickly because I was like, I just kind of want to see whether or not this is going to work in the way that I think it's going to. And it, for the most part, did. But my sand was absolutely drenched. And as you can see underneath all of these sort of stippled surface, we still have proper metal. You'll get a much nicer finish on your work if you have nice dry sand. So you'll want a few inches of sand on the bottom. You can set in your skull. Make sure to wiggle it into the sand. This way you'll try and get as much detail as you possibly can. Shake the bucket every few inches. The finer your sand is, the better result you'll get as well. The more details it will be able to pick up. So as you can see, this is our sprue. Take some water and I'm just going to wet the top surface area. This will allow me to create a bit of a funnel. I want a nice big target as well. Now remember, liquid fall down, liquid don't fall up. So when you're setting in your styrofoam, make sure that you're very specific about how it's sitting. Because if it's sitting the wrong way, then you're not going to be able to fill it up properly. Let's get to pouring.
That didn't go well at all.
Okay, so that's what we got left over, and that's the issue there. You can see that massive crack opened up right the way around. I think originally it was just this, and then I suppose whilst we were pouring it, we just put so much stress on the back part of that, it just cracked. 1 out of 2 of the molds that I had to pour today. The other one is this one, going to be a branding iron from my brother. This one turned out fine, however I poured it first, so I have no idea what the other one's going to look like. Give me crabby tongs. Okay. So as you can see, that's just the excess. That's not a good sign. There's something solid in there. Ooh. Ooh. Okay, so it didn't turn out perfect. It's actually so far from perfect. However, it's actually pretty cool. This thing's gonna act like a giant heatsink for a while, so I'm just gonna let it cool down for a bit. So I actually kind of really like him. I'm gonna call him Brainless Bill because he's missing the back part of his cranium. But he's actually turned out quite cool. Like, there's a lot of detail in here. You can actually see the individual sort of bits of the styrofoam. Now, obviously, the back part of him didn't fill up all the way, and we can blame that on the fact that the crucible broke, because I wasn't able to get enough metal into his head. That being said, I reckon we could probably clean this up. I'm going to probably use some Scotch-Brite belts on the belt grinder, see whether or not I can polish him at all. Otherwise, I might just sort of leave him as a little bit of a more of a flat color. There he is, all done. Now obviously it's not perfect, he's missing a massive part of his cranium, but overall I'm actually genuinely not too upset about the way that this turned out. As you can see, there's quite a bit of detail in his face. It's actually really cool to see how much detail that you can get using styrofoam and sand. That is amazing. Like even where there was like tiny little cuts in the styrofoam, and where there were little bits of imperfection there as well. Now I really want to give this another shot. I can't do it today. I have to get a new crucible. Overall, I'm genuinely happy with the way that this turned out. It's actually pretty cool. One thing that I am kind of upset about is what's actually left inside this crucible. So you can't see it super well, but just in there we have a bit of that brass color coming through and a little bit of copper as well. It looks an awful lot like makomegane, which is a type of forge welding essentially. It can give you amazing patterns very similar to Damascus, but with a much wider variety of different colors. So it would have been really cool to see that come out in the top of his skull, because like as you're pouring it in, it's going to sort of fill up, and whatever's at the very bottom of your crucible is going to end up at the top of your pour. If we got like a little bit more out of the crucible, which it's actually surprisingly enough, like we're lucky that it held together as best as it can. If we had just a little bit more material come out of this, I reckon it would have looked really cool. Mind you, there's probably enough material in there that I could probably, if I can somehow get it out without completely destroying it, I could probably turn that into a bolster or a knife guard or something like that. So it'd be pretty cool anyway. I'm gonna try and use it regardless. This turned out pretty damn cool, and I'm very happy with the end result, even with that massive failure. And it is really encouraging, and it's something that I think I might try again. I've got a bunch of foam skulls coming in the mail, so hopefully they'll get here before fire bans start up again, and we'll be able to do a little bit more casting. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll catch you all in the next one. I'm not really one that celebrates Halloween, but that's fine. Everybody has their own thing, and I hope you guys that do celebrate Halloween have an awesome day, or an awesome night, whatever you do. I'll probably be playing games, let's face it. Remember to stay safe, happy crafting, and as always, cheers.